Daniel can come later if he wants. All right, here we are. We've got a quorum. To be honest, haven't looked at the minutes to see whether I approve them or not. Does anyone have any? It looks okay.
I do have a request,
Okay.
comment or correction. I've got it here. Where are the minutes?
They're in your. Got another packet. I could. That's the February meeting minutes.
On item 10, member Mergus presented his request, the girls, oops, that's right. Hang on. Okay, on item 7B of the meeting minutes, board member Mergus would like more public involvement prior to assembly decision concerning that particular motion. And my concern, my comment, my complaint was that the public was not adequately notified, and the agenda was not published until several days after the meeting was taking place. And so I wasn't asking for more comments, but I was complaining that there wasn't ample promulgation of that particular item on the agenda.
How do we normally proceed with a change to the minutes?
I would think if you just note my objection would be adequate.
We'll do that at this meeting. Okay. And that was about the meeting was announced, but the agenda wasn't out right away.
That's correct.
Okay.
And it wasn't on the public domain until several days after the meeting.
Was announced or was
Held? Not the agenda items, and the agenda items are required by the Open Meetings Act.
All right. Else? All right, without objection, consider those approved. Anyone want to add anything to the agenda? Good. Anyone want to be heard on items related to the agenda? How about unrelated? Okay, go ahead and do your report, Glo.
Hey, we are just plugging away. We're losing Rance McIntosh. He is gonna go work for Darby in the apprentice program through AvTech. They now have the opportunity, I guess, to be able to work under a licensed electrician. Under a licensed electrician, and can stay in town. So he's going to go off and do that. And we are actively looking for a maintenance position. And Jim Engel's back in the summer work mode with us for a couple months. Otherwise, maintenance is kind of going along a little bit on the drudge update. Western Marine got the outer entrance area done, and now they're going to come back. They're pushing for August, but the Corps says October 1st. They may negotiate an earlier start time, but to do the rest of it, which is to increase the depth of the basin a tad in areas and clean up that 400 row. So I've been talking to them, and hopefully they'll get on that before the snow flies. Get it all done, and then we'll be done. Petro trade update. Well, there'll be a decision 10 years into it. Scow Bay, there was some exciting word from the DC lobbyist that Murkowski and Peltola put that in as a project on their project list. So that was good. The budget passed. the liveaboard cap, the $200 wake fine, adding float houses to the list of unauthorized uses all passed. Dockside examiners coming to town on an extra trip. So if you hear of anybody that needs a dockside, they'll be here next week just for the one day. And we've got 90 plus on the waiting list, and Jim was there as we were getting another one signed up. So that continues to grow. The need is there for for another harbor. That's all. Any questions for me? It's been pretty well standard operation.
I'll go here. What's the biggest demand? What do you need most of for stalls?
The larger stalls, 50 and up.
Are those commercial or like yachts, or what do you see? What's new?
Definitely yachts, definitely a move towards liveaboard. Is kind of why we talked about it earlier this year. A lot of people it continues to amaze me every year. I think, okay, we've seen everybody. Gosh, every pleasure boat on the planet has made it up here. And by golly, every year there's a big percentage of new ones. So,
Seeing as far as economic activity, what is there a benefit? Even if they don't move here, is there a benefit to having like a?
well, as for us, for the harbor per se, the commercial fleet is better because we get a cut of the raw fish tax, to promote future projects, things like that, as well as we see, industry driving the fuel and the sale of groceries and just that kind of activity, as well as even the visitor industry, because a lot of people, that's what they want to come see, is a working harbor and a working community. So yeah, it all takes but the commercial guys are not paying more than the yacht, I guess, if that's what you're asking. They don't pay a higher price. Because
Kind of curious what
Yeah.
you think about boats in the harbor. You'd like to see that there's more than just moorage coming to the town. There's some businesses being used and revenue.
You can probably look at it, honestly speaking, a couple of different ways. Commercial boats require more infrastructure. They're the ones that need the carts, and they're the ones that need the drive downs, and they're the ones that need the vacant land to store, that kind of stuff. Whereas, a mom and pop yacht, a lot of times they're maybe a bicycle rack will be, is kind of the infrastructure needed. So the pump out station, that is probably something that segment would drive a need for that. But so it's, plus and minus.
What is the status of pumping out sewage? tank?
You don't have one.
No.
Yeah, you can have that. Yep. If you can find him and if he'll break, but he has an answering machine that currently says, don't call me because I have too much business. That's what the manager reported yesterday.
First, I saw a sandwich board. I was on the drive down, and a sandwich board showed up saying my spot I was in was reserved the next morning. There's reservations now at the drive down?
We've always had that. Those
Is it
were,
reservation only, or is it just
Yeah.
reservation trumps whatever else? is
yeah,
going on?
reservation trumps. And we play, that we really try to identify, what the need is. We play, probably would be called favoritism towards the commercial fleet in that, if it's time to load gear and crab gear, like I turned the tour ships away. They wanted to come in and spend the whole day. And I said, sorry, we can only handle half a day. We didn't reserve the inside for a welding project or, that kind of stuff. But yeah, remember, if you remember, we put workstations on the inside of that
Yeah, I remember
facility
that.
and that's how we monitor and we keep it moving is we charge a daily rate for those inside spots as well as the cost of the electrical that's getting used. So that tends to keep the boats, in there using it. And if they're not using it, we keep pretty close tie to it. But yeah, we've got charter boats that reserve it for a few hours to dump off their passengers, load some provisions and go back to their stall. It's easier for them to get people on and off. So there's a few of those that do that and as well as reserving the outside for the cruise ships and all of that. So yes. Gotten used to that and it's working until it doesn't work, and then we enforce the 4 hour, that's the limit. It's like a loading zone. Our loading zones are 4 hour limits. So if you go there and tie up and stay longer than 4, then you get a call from us and we threaten either a charge or, try and get people to realize that there's other groups trying.
Else?
Are you in the harbor master report?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Right, well. Thanks, Chloe. Do you have any unfinished business? Unaware of any? Okay, on to new business. Probably our. Sorry about that. Important guy. You want to take the lead on that, Go?
Yeah, Bob came, we talked about having a meeting and I thought this might be a good time to just run by a couple of these ideas that have been mulling around in my head and see if we're going down the right track or if we're, totally off base here. But so back up to the working with the Corps of Engineers. Part of the rationale behind dredging the South Harbor was we have gone to the Corps of Engineers to ask for a feasibility study to look at putting a new harbor basin, them helping us put in a new harbor basin out in Scow Bay. And the first thing they said is, are you efficiently using your harbor? Yes, we felt like, but we do have this issue in the South Harbor where we're running into not being able to use our stalls completely what they were built for, 100-foot boats that draft 14 feet when they're loaded in and out, the egress issue in and out. Now we've got stalls that are, there's been buildup in them and we can't tie them up there. They got to pull out during low tide, all of these things. And they said, okay, well, it goes back to, are you efficiently using your harbor? So then we went down the whole idea of we better dredge the South Harbor so it can efficiently be used. Okay, so here we are in a $10 million project to make sure that the South Harbor is now being used for, what it can, to maximize the potential there. Okay, great. So the other thing is they ask about, well, are you charging enough? Do you have a lot of derelict boats? Do you have boats that don't move? Yada, yada. Are you efficiently using yep, we don't have any of that. We have all of our stalls are full. We've got a waiting list. We've all of these things. So one of the things they'll come and ask us is, is your harbor being used for what a boat harbor should be used for? Boats that are up and moving and, that's what they're in the business for. So we do have an issue with a percentage of boats, I would say mostly in the 32 to 50-foot range that do not move for whatever reason. I'm not going to say they're derelict. Got a couple that I'm auctioning in the process of impounding and auctioning off right now. But for the most part, they're boats that could be used for what boats are used for. And, but they don't move. And we've got this waiting list. And now I'm running into issues where I have commercial guys that are coming in March, April to get a stall for the season. They get launched at John's. They want to come get a semi-permanent stall, semi-annual stall. And I don't have a place to tie them up. So I am now hot berthing them around and charging them a transient rate, which is the most expensive. And here they're commercial guys that are going out and bringing product back to town. We're getting their raw fish tax. We're screwing them at the, for moorage. And then I have these boats that essentially are just there because it's a cheap place to store their boat. So can we have a conversation about what do you think would be? I'm thinking if we raise the rate on these boats that don't move, maybe that would be a way to, move them on or get them to maybe pull the boat out, store it, or sell the boat, or, something so it all of a sudden we are maximizing our stall usage. So we can answer the Corps when they come back and say, hey, do you have a lot of derelict boats in your harbor, which means that you're maybe not charging enough, or you have a problem with, I don't know, because most of these boats can move. They're not derelicts. Like I say, we deal with those pretty quick. Like I have one that's, we're gonna end up having to demo it. I have another one that we're auctioning off. So anyway, so I was thinking, throwing the number out that we, if you don't move 72 hours, other people have said 30 days out of the stall, you're going to pay double. That's a conversation starter. What do you guys think?
What are our different rates? I know we got a transient fee. I don't want to know the money.
Yeah.
But we got a transient, we got a full-time stall.
Okay, so we have the transient rate, which is the most expensive, the permanent rate, which is the least expensive. In the middle, we have a semi-annual, which is 6 months. Like transient, you're going to be around for longer than a transient, which we would say a couple of months too. So like 3 to 6 months. There's that lane, and it works well for Dungeness guys, or for, they pay a little bit more, but they're not paying the transient rate. Everybody feels good about that, kind of meeting them halfway in the middle. So we don't have a lot of that because I don't have any empty stalls. That really was a thing initially when John started up, and we lost a lot of customers to the point of when we redesigned the North Harbor, we built bigger stalls because there was now this group of boats that had a very viable option to be hauled out at Murgis's. And so therefore we didn't need the 12-month a year stall as much as we did in the past. So we built bigger stalls, a lot of 42 foots and 50-foot stalls rather than the 30 and the 40-foot stalls. So, we accommodated, and he's got a thriving business that is a boon to the community, and we've got a harbor that's full, so it's obviously working. But we do have we have an issue with and maybe I'm barking up the wrong tree and we just continue to, but I can see that we have probably it's about 10% in that size bracket of the 30 to the boats that just, they live in other communities. They don't have stalls in Juneau. So they come down here and they tie their sailboat up, and it hasn't left now in 6 years. And they pay for it. I mean, they're up to date on their moorage, but the boat hasn't left, and it's doing absolutely nothing for our raw fish take or our this. Anyway, so just want to run that by you because I'm going to take it to the assembly and they're going to say, what did the harbor board say?
Do I ever empathize with Glow? I'm the harbor master for my operation. This is a really, I think, a major sensitive issue. And it's to the point where I feel I would have to claim conflict of interest because I would be lynched no matter how I vote. And so, but I see the necessity to start a conversation on this. And I think we have to solicit all the different users and get their input. And I don't know how to do that. Maybe a newsletter when you do the monthly billings, a type of survey. And so, yeah, this is a tough one. And to try to change the demographics of the of our fleet, whether it's commercial or pleasure, by basically a surcharge on monthly billings. I think it could really raise a lot of hackles, and maybe we can avoid that somehow with more discussion on this. I'd like to at least see a few more members to contribute their ideas on this.
Well, yeah, I guess it's, you know, this is a practice they do in Wrangell, up at their boatyard. The first year is a set rate, the second year is double if you haven't done, just to try and keep things moving, because they don't want to be a, you know, just a storage yard over there. And so I think it's something that, you know, I'd like to pursue, and I just, you know, would like to discuss with, yeah, with the group, because,
Let me ask another question.
Yeah.
Do any other harbors in Southeast have a similar policy? I did take the liberty of calling Ketchikan, Sitka, and I think just those two. They said no, they do not.
not that,
So
in Southeast. I
We
don't
would be
know.
on the first ones to do this in Southeast.
Yeah, we do have, you know, everybody has a little different, probably regulations when it comes to, how they go about it. I know like in Sitka, if you leave without paying and they have to issue you a bill, it's, they double the rate, you know, so there's different ways. We address it differently here. We have a lot of commercial guys that you know.
Most of the harbors do have time issues with storage, but not with their stalls. So, but anyway, I just, I'm uncomfortable with, if this comes to a vote, if somebody makes a motion on it. And I don't want to be the bad guy because there's only 4 of us here, but I'd have a hard time voting this. Could we possibly postpone this for a future meeting and maybe go out more to the general public for some more input?
Well, what we're risking, John, is, you know, our discussions with the Corps of Engineers. We are moving forward on developing a harbor, and, you know, I mean, that's the only thing. So we can talk, but, you know, it'd be nice to, you know, more than just kicking the can down the road. What do you think? I mean, what would be reasonable? What would be reasonable to encourage somebody to move on? What is?
Well, it's a sensitive issue because you're asking me what would it take to get somebody to leave Petersburg's harbor and no longer keep their yachts here?
I would dare say, okay, again, it's the smaller boat. And I don't know that you would consider a boat that hasn't untied from the harbor for 6 years, hasn't had anything done to it for 6 years, as really driving away from the harbor, you know. I mean, all we're saying, what I'm saying is that the boat beside it that comes and goes constantly, that we can sublet put as part of our our hot birthing system, you know, that person is worth 3 times the amount of their mortgage because we make 20% of our income off of these 4,000 or 5,000 votes that are coming in. And I'm turning those people away because I have a boat that doesn't leave. So.
Yeah, I don't have a
Yeah.
solution for this,
Right.
but that's why we have a harbor board and why an assembly and I think key is communications up front before we would vote on something like this. Yeah, I'll throw this back in your lap. What do you propose and how would it be monitored? It almost have to put some people would leave for the afternoon and just come right back.
Right, yeah.
And that wouldn't accomplish anything. Or put an ankle bracelet on the boat somehow they have to go
We
so
have the
far, if they have to go
luxury-
outside of the city limits or whatever, it's. I have a whole bunch of questions on how you could implement something like that.
Yeah, well, we're luxury of being fairly small. So we know, and we do multiple rounds a day. So we've got between 5 and 6 rounds a day happening.
The census.
Yeah, yeah. So, and we document that 5 or 6 times a day.
Sorry, I didn't catch that.
We do rounds 5 or 6
Yeah, okay,
times a
daily
day. We
rounds.
document that 5 or 6 times a
Uh-huh.
day. If there is a boat that leaves once a year, it's gonna be a big deal. And those small boats are not what I'm worried about. It's the gill netter size, it's the crabber size, it's the 40-foot size.
Base it on length or tonnage.
Conversation, maybe, yeah. Maybe we would say between, I wouldn't go that detail. I would say, move your boat 72 hours. And that's gonna take a boat that has been mothballed for 6 years and make that, if we were to say leave for 72 hours, something very minimal, go get hauled out and do some boat work. That would be a huge boon for a lot of these boats to just keep them floating.
Excuse me, I should ask you to see. But don't you already have a rule that boats have to move once a year?
Yes, we do.
Okay,
And that gets to be, what do I do? What do I do if they don't?
okay.
Have them arrested? It would be way easier just to say, okay, if you haven't moved, we're going to charge you double. That will take care of itself, I feel like. I
I
mean,
don't think that's reasonable.
what to,
You're saying consider a reasonable,
what's reasonable, 72 hours or a month or a day or 12 hours? I mean, for some of these boats, 12 hours.
my boat hasn't moved for 2 years because
Right.
I had open heart surgery and my
Right.
knees.
Right,
If it's medical and the boat's licensed to fish. I'm kind of agreeing with John there. There's got to be more discussion about it.
sure.
Well, and that's why we're here.
Yeah, that's why I'm saying, let's
here
discuss,
to
let's
start-
talk about
Start
it.
a discussion, I guess.
Yeah, I mean,
Well, John, at this point in time, John's semi against it. I mean, wants more information.
what information would you like me to get?
Huh?
What information would you like me? I mean, I'm not being,
You
I'm
have to
just,
ask John.
I got an issue and I just bringing it to you and bouncing it off you.
So you say we gotta, I remember reading that you gotta move your boat at least once a year, something like
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
So that's not something that we enforce now, is that right?
Yeah,
Kind of,
Yeah. I mean, I make these calls to
Yeah,
people and
yeah.
say, and
And I mean, obviously, there's medical issues that, for somebody who has medical stuff, who keeps the boat licensed and that sort of stuff, that makes sense. What is the course of action right now? What could be your course of action if you decided to enforce the 1 year.
Charge them, they'd see it on their bill, send them
It would be a double. You
yeah,
have
maybe
groups
it's 10% more.
Right,
Maybe it's $20. I mean, it's
Right.
something to say, hey, we realize, you,
and I'm under agreement that I
Yeah.
think that boats are designed to move and they should move.
well, yeah, I
And
mean,
that's my thoughts on it. I mean, everybody's got different thoughts and, it might be something that a boat that size, that would benefit John and the fact that it moves out and maybe he can get a pressure wash in the bottom painted out there. Whatever it takes, a little bit of maintenance doesn't hurt and
and maybe that's, we say 24 hours or something and yeah, and then at least these boats don't fall into that derelict category where they all of a sudden, God, it's been 6 years and they haven't moved and
So there was a rule right now, kind of like they have to be running. I thought there was something that
Yeah.
said they had to have a motor of some
yeah,
sort.
yeah,
or-
yeah.
I've heard that, but
And-
I've seen it not happen.
Well, yeah, and then there's COVID and I mean, I talk to these people and they flat tell me, I mean, I had a conversation, 2 days ago with a guy, I just can't afford it. I'm working towards it and I'm gonna get this bracket and I'm gonna put an outboard, I'm gonna talk to some, and it's like, okay, well, we gotta keep moving forward to this. I don't really have a recourse to kick them out. I mean, that's not gonna happen, so. This way, I was just thinking, $50 a month for not moving, something just to help people
So is
realize.
there a liveaboard fee?
Uh-huh.
There is a liveaboard fee. So maybe it turns into something like that the boat has got its regular moorage and then,
Liveaboard fee isn't the problem. I mean, it doesn't correlate directly to liveaboards at all.
These aren't living.
No.
they're
no.
just, they're just
They're just-
spots where people.
They're
park
just,
them.
it's an inexpensive place to store your boat. Cause it hasn't untied I mean, we've had boats that don't untie for decades. And if we're building a new harbor at the cost of $65 million to supplement boats that aren't moving, that is a hard sell to those that are gonna dole out the 65 million. That's kind of where I'm
What
at.
percentage of the harbor is in that category?
Maybe 8
Out of how many?
of those of that certain size. And that's one way as we go towards designing a new harbor, what size are we going to build for? Right now, we're leaning because we are 100% efficient in the 50 and up. I've got like 2 boats that haven't moved in that size. And so that's what I want to build for. And if we can clean up the 32 and 40-foot size, then I feel like, yeah, we don't really need to build a bunch more. When we built the South Harbor, remember, we had a real need of those 42-foot stalls. So that's what we built for. And that's a good number that we have right now, is a real good number. And if we can clean up, the 5-10% that aren't moving, and if we don't clean them up, at least they're contributing a little bit more. So, okay, then everybody's happy. They're paying a little extra. And those boats that move a lot, well, they're helping too, because they're moving, and all the visitors that we run through they have places to tie up. But I'm just trying to maximize the use of the harbor. And so that's why I'm just running it by you. And we got to, come up with something to incentivize this group that is getting a pretty good deal. Everybody else is pulling their weight for them. And yeah, a couple of years, if you have to pay a little bit more, then maybe it's advantageous to sell your boat or to get it up and running, at least take it out and get it serviced. I mean, it could be as easy as that. once they annually, once a year, go get it maintenance. And under its own power, it goes somewhere and then, hey, everybody's happy. We've got a operating boat. But I'm looking at a percentage that are.
Here, first, what's it look like seasonally for stall use? Like, I know there's a lot of empty stalls in the winter. Are a lot of those already bought, they're still being paid for, they're just vacant because it's advantageous to hold it all year instead of being
Play more.
a hot berther in the summer?
Yeah, yeah.
I can see that
Right.
reasoning, but part of me thinks that, if we have a vacant stall, it's nice to see the money coming in, we don't see any stalls going not making revenue from them. So it's part of my, if I was to like weigh each case, it'd be like, well, do we need this person out there to make more revenue? But it'd be nice if we could review some of these cases, or there's like a review process. I don't know if that can legally be done by an advisory board, because like when you guys become the, Jeff, the property tax equalization, is that like a special legal status that you have? And
Yeah, that's an idea. Having a board of equal.
yeah, it
Case?
might be, it might be too much to make that the harbor board, but maybe the council could review, like if someone's got a medical thing and they've been a good customer and you expect them to be a good customer in the future, it's like, I'm willing to make some allowances, but there's some that are they're just there because it's easy and it's cheap. And
Yeah.
there's some question whether, do we subsidize the harbor? Does the harbor subsidize the town? But there's a lot of money around. These stalls cost a lot more to build than they used to. And I'd like to see them used in a way that subsidy that's in the name of economic activity. If you're not doing anything, it's really not just a long-term place to park your boat. It's more of a in and out. I don't know what the threshold would be, but I agree with your basic idea. But I don't know where that's gonna land. And it'd also be nice to allow for special cases. And also, if it's not like you're kicking them out the way you're talking. It's like, okay, so it's $50 a month more. I might light a fire under somebody to get that outboard bracket put on so they can still
Yeah.
basically dodge the the intent of the law, but I don't know. So I'd like to see us keep working on it. Doesn't sound like we have enough juice in here now to do anything but vote no. Because we need every vote.
Yeah. I echo what Bob said, and well, I think this is a great start of a conversation, but I would need more details before I would commit to propose the ordinance change.
What are those details?
But
What are those details?
just all the things we've been asking about, which vessels qualify for this, the tonnage, the frequency they would have to move, the dollars that would be involved.
So what would you, my question back to you is, I can't give you details on human beings. That's illegal. But I could, what would you think would be? Can you give me a little feedback on what do you think, something like?
I don't know. I'm being honest. I don't know. And that's why I wouldn't want to move any further on this.
You're unwilling
Towards an
to
ordinance change. And
suggest.
I think someone, and probably you, I know you're busy as heck, but if you could maybe word something where there'd be a start and then we could all contribute to it, give time, and ask some of our customers, vessel owners, hey, what do you think of this? I think it was
I've been
good.
doing that, and most of the guys that have come back to us have said, make them leave for a month.
Yeah.
I'm like, whoa, that's a little extreme, they're seeing their season coming and going, and it's like, yeah, we seem to be, out generating, fuel tax and raw fish tax and, industry, and then the next door neighbor hasn't moved in 6 years.
You're 100% right.
They're like, yeah, I think they should be out for a lot longer. So Because I was throwing out the idea, people I've talked to, 72 hours maybe, thinking that somebody could go get hauled out, get some bottom paint done, getting some, at least that would show that the boat is operational. And it would keep it operational, it might be annually an event for the family to go get the sailboat.
That's another issue he brings up, is that a lot of times that not moving for a year is the beginning of a long road towards,
Exactly.
if you're not hauled, doing something once a year,
Yeah.
I wonder how you're maintaining that boat.
And that's what we see a lot of. People come in, just these beautiful boats, and then, whatever happens, then it gets tied up and then something, they don't get it undone. Then pretty soon, this beautiful boat that came in is getting sold in the bar on a napkin, and so-and-so's living on it. And now, I mean, I had last week somebody come in and ask me, hey, I'm thinking about getting another boat and putting it in here. And then I'll live on that while I fix the first one up. And then I'll rent out the second one. At this point, it's like, oh boy, this is not. We get asked a lot about that. A lot of, the housing issue has really kind of brought up some of this to a head. Last week I had homeless people saying that they had authorization to move their stuff aboard. And my night guy caught them, and pretty soon we had police involved, and the boat watcher had given the okay. The owner didn't know anything about it. It's since been, but the night guy, thank goodness, knew what to do. And so we escaped that. But again, it wasn't a boat that has not moved. It's changed hands. These people have promised, and it's not like I'm this heartless person, right? I sit down with these people and I probably let them go a little bit too long because I'm working with them. I hear their case and, yeah, we're going to let you try, because it really, at the end of the day, for the harbor to impound and to demo boats is very expensive. And I have 2 boats in the harbor that I'm very nervous about, and it's going to involve federal marshals. And, that's an expensive thing. So anyway, this is just one of those things that I could see would help a percentage of people go from being a derelict to a. So, yeah, we can continue talking about it.
But,
I'd like- I just hope we don't ruin our opportunity with the Corps of Engineers.
something like this almost seems like maybe we should, in order to get enough public input, we might want to bump it up to the assembly, because it seems like that gets more publicity. We have nobody here. I'm not saying, not you're nobody, Jake, but you're always here, so. And if you have anything, I appreciate hearing what you have to say about it. You've been around a lot of these things. But I think John has a good point that this is probably be nice to get more public input. Not that we're not a valid board with a quorum here, but there's just not much. I can see how if this goes out, we're gonna get, all of a sudden get a lot more
May I ask why,
ideas.
sorry, Bob. May I ask why why it's so timely with the Corps? Are they waiting for a response?
Well,
or
yeah,
something like this?
we've got money at the core level to enter into a feasibility study, and part of the feasibility study for building another harbor will delve into this. Are you efficiently using your harbors? Is it worth it to us to put a basin in that? So that's part of a feasibility study. So yeah, that's why I'm able to, that's why I want to push this information. So yeah, no, we can.
Well, if there's no motion, I think we can move on, but I'll go on record saying, I think there's something worth talking about here. The details, just not enough of us here to flesh it out right now, but you guys okay with moving on?
Yes.
And maybe bringing something back that's a little bit more detailed and, yeah,
Future harbor board meeting?
I could do that.
Okay, before it goes would this be an ordinance reading like the wake zone? Would this have to eventually go to the assembly?
Oh,
So
sure.
that's
for
another
sure.
place, a lot of, but then it'd be nice in the crafting of it, maybe that some more input.
Yeah.
Happen before.
Yeah.
It's getting voted on. So, okay. Yeah. And you don't want to have to change it on the fly like that. Yeah, I understand.
I like that Board of Equalization. That is also in place when we go to impound a boat. You know, you get your letter and all of that, and you go, oh, I've been wronged. And it goes to a hearing. There's a hearing. You know, we could adopt something similar to that.
I don't recall ever being at a hearing on the harbor board. Is that who?
No, it doesn't go to the harbor board. No, it goes to the
City manager.
city manager and I think an assemblyman kind of a thing. So they hear your case and, you know, if they feel like their impoundment has not been properly dealt with, there's that option.
I'd be interested in hearing those cases just because, we're pretty close to the harbor issues and.
Yeah.
And we got not much else to do, so anyway. So, okay, we'll move on to,
And this is another, this derelict boat fee. It's just probably a frustration. I've kind of alluded to it already, but so we have we don't have many derelicts in our harbor, right? We've got a couple situations now where I impounded one. I've got it for sale, auction through the newspaper for minimal. What's owed against it is all we can legally get. And if it ends up going for more, then we have the required minimum, then we hold it for a while and it eventually goes back to the original owner. So I've got one of those, and then I have a real derelict. I've got one that is this case that we're talking about. It came in under its own power. It was owned for about a decade, didn't get used, was going to be somebody's disrepair, ended up selling to a dreamer who came and talked to me. And I said, okay, we'll be in this together. I'll give you a stall. You have these thresholds to meet, and then we can continue our relationship. Otherwise, it's going to be a derelict right then, and we're going to have to spend the money to get rid of it. Okay, so that of course failed, like 90% of them do. And it's been abandoned, and I've sent all the paperwork. And so now we have this boat. It's a 12-ton wooden little troller that I have talked to Raleigh Cook about demoing, and it's going to cost about $5,000 from his end. And I've talked to the baler about what it costs to ship it out because you can't sink boats or anything like that anymore. And it's $130 a ton, so 12 ton, so we got about $7,500 in getting rid of this boat. Which is what we put in our budget annually, is it's about $7,500. We usually max it out every year. So okay, so that's something we can kind of do with these undocumented smaller boats. It's when you start getting into registered documented vessels that they get really expensive. Got to go through the Corps of Engineers, the federal marshals, and go through considerable hoops, but it's expensive then when you finally get through all of that to demo. How am I going to do a 58 steel seine boat? 58-foot steel seine boat, or a 78-foot shrimper on the end of your harbor that has now been abandoned and not paying his bill, but I got to keep the power on because I don't want it to sink and I don't want that call. So I'd like to, at some point, I've got calls into Rock and Road about what it would cost if I could get the owner to sign it over to us. Then we can, under our own timeline, get rid of it. And I don't know what that'll be, but it'll be tens of thousands of dollars, kind of above and beyond. And maybe it is just the cost of doing business. Maybe we just raise rates and know that every 10, 15 years, we have to tackle something like that. Or should we talk about kind of putting people on notice? And maybe this is a thing where if you haven't moved in a year, you start contributing to this fund. $100 a year or a month, or I don't know. So, or maybe it's just a cost of doing business and we say, derelict. I mean, I remember when Jim raised the rates one time remember, Jim, it was about garbage, and we actually put a garbage surplus. Oh my gosh, everybody through the door was like, I don't dump my garbage. I'm not using the So we said, never again. When we raise rates, it's just going to be cost of doing business. The cost of doing business has gone up, whatever. So I don't know, but now everybody likes to point the fingers at somebody else, and I don't know, maybe it's a bad idea, but
When I first read this, I wanted to come up and hug you because I have the exact same problem. And a couple of questions. What is there's been different policies and rates for the landfill over the
Yeah,
years.
yeah.
And what's the most current?
the
Is
most
it by
current
ton?
is, as of 2 days ago, $130 a ton.
Ton, okay.
Pretty minimal.
Yeah, now there's, in the past, to get a discounted rate, you had to bring the whole boat in. Now that's not required anymore, so it could be partially dismantled.
I think they appreciate, I'm not, it's probably easiest, whatever, it's case by case, and whatever Aaron would like, how to get it back off island. Because most of them, if they're fiberglass, they're not gonna rip them to shreds and bale them. They're gonna drag them off like they do cars.
Yeah, right.
So,
Anyway, yeah, I'm really enthused about this. Again, I don't know how to put it in words
Right.
and the details. But I'm so disappointed with the state's new derelict abandoned vessel law that was 4 or 5 years ago, which I very strongly lobbied against. And it has what used to be, I think, 8 pages, now is about 30 pages. And so detailed that it's impractical for a small business like mine to really follow the law. And you probably have close to the same problem. I would like to see more public, this isn't a problem just for the harbor, it's for the whole community. It's not going to do any good to get some of these boats by dumping them out the road, dumping them on private property, which has happened to me. Haul them out to Papke's. That's a way to put them, put them over there. Juneau has a fairly interesting ordinance, and I talked to the city clerk about this. Let me read this. It's and Petersburg also has it. It's called a nuisance ordinance. Petersburg is it's pretty confusing. Where this is straightforward. Nuisances declared: any person who does any act or causes or creates anything within the city and borough which is substantially and unreasonably interferes with the use or enjoyment of real property, including water, this applies to their harbors, is guilty of maintaining a nuisance, which shall be punished as a misdemeanor. And when I read that, I said, wow, I like it. So, maybe something like that could be helpful. And there are also different businesses in town who want to be involved in disposal of vessels. Scow Bay Turnaround, as is right now, is a tremendously potential, valuable spot for the city owns, the borough owns the tidelands right there. That could be brought in right next to the ramp. There's already an existing lease where large vessels could be partially dismantled there. If it would take a jetty or something, that would be fine. Maybe in the future that jetty could be used for a travel lift. There are small businesses like mine who would like to, right now, I think you pretty much sole source disposal of your smaller boats. I'd like to get in on that and compete and maybe keep the rates down. And I know of 2 other businesses who would like to do that. And so there are other things, but I'm getting a little bit sidetracked here. your main proposal is great and I support it. I don't know how to put it all in words. It also, like the previous proposal, I think we all need to sit down and share our ideas and get it down on paper. Let's see, concerning, this would, as you worded it here, it would apply only to new vessels coming in.
I mean, again, it's just, what do you
Yeah.
think? I mean, I don't want to offend the existing stall holder because, you know, history.
And like,
But
the other issues, you say, okay, what about this $1 million brand new vessel that comes in? Is he gonna be offended if we tell him he's gonna
Well,
put $5,000 down to dispose of his
maybe I
boats?
was thinking, you know, in the middle of the night, I woke up thinking maybe it's one of these things that we say, you either produce a up-to-date proof of insurance,
Uh-huh.
or you contribute to this derelict boat fund, either or, maybe that's something. Cause I know there's a lot of boats that do have insurance and say, hey, I don't, you offend people when you call them a transient or their boat's looking kind of derelict. Those are fighting words. So maybe something like that where we say,
But insurance doesn't cover disposal of a derelict vessel.
it doesn't, but there's a rare derelict that has insurance.
What?
Rarely does a derelict have insurance.
I didn't know that. Okay, talk to Susan Erickson.
I have an abandoned boat. I couldn't even go after that fellow with a misdemeanor because he is not in the state anymore.
Yeah,
So, I mean, you could have all sorts of,
but what was the title of that insurance?
just boat insurance. If they have a proof of boat
Yeah.
insurance.
I get basically the idea is if a boat is sitting there derelict, it's very unlikely that anyone has insurance on it.
Yeah.
And so you can use insurance as
Maybe
a way, I mean, it's offensive to me as a existing owner to say, you're gonna hit me with a derelict boat fee when it's like, oh, so I'm gonna pay now, so you don't have to pay later. I mean,
right.
what's in it for me? I mean, if you just go ahead and do what you gotta do and raise the rates and at the last resort, but I'd rather the cost of, I mean, it used to be not long ago, and I was involved in a boat purchased and like within a week it sank in the harbor and we were able to float it and go float it away to a place nobody cared about and sink it. And that's become kind of off the table, although I think it still happens, but
It is 100% off the table as a borough. I have a letter from DEC threatening if we ever.
but that, I think things have changed. So that
Right.
what now maybe would have been a
And
$50,000 disposal or more, we were able to accomplish in a week's worth of work and
yeah,
you know.
and again, I'm not talking about the little unregistered ones that we can haul out and we can contact, we can get John or Raleigh, or I've had Rock and Road. I mean, there's been multiple people that have, Charles has demoed boats for us. I mean, it's whoever wants to take it can do it. That's one thing. We can do that, 7,500, 10 grand a year, okay. But what do you do for $130,000? I mean, Juneau had that with that tug. It was hundreds of thousands of dollars and it wasn't much. Anyway,
all of it with a little mortgage increase.
no,
I mean, it's bigger
Therefore-
than that. Plus it's a little offensive to the people who are.
well, and back to
causing
like
the
what we did
problem.
with the garbage, you would just say, it's just cost of doing business, but knowing full well,
I do believe that if my boat sunk in the harbor, I think my insurance would pay for it to be refloated and all that. So that's something. Do you have to get out of here, Don? Do you want to weigh in before you go?
No, I mean, I
Got any-
hate some derelict. I think that they're an eyesore. I think they're a danger. Could be hazardous navigation. Could be environmental hazards. A lot of those boats they still have fuel on them. So I'm with Bob. I mean, I work hard to keep my boat nice. I play music for people when they walk by so they can listen and
That was
enjoy.
what I was thinking.
Yeah, you bet.
It smells good too.
Yeah, thanks. That's that woody wax. It's good stuff. So. You know, it's hard to balance it, right? Because not everybody works hard to keep their boat nice. It's.
Yeah, that's
um,
not,
And a lot of folks that have the derelict boats probably don't have the means to dispose of the boats.
most of the time they've been abandoned. If I've gone through the process of, you know, of impounding them and notifying them that they gotta do something and so they've left me standing, then that person, I can't charge with it. I mean, they're gone. So,
It's a tough road for sure.
so,
But I
And-
would like to continue the conversation. I
Yeah.
really do have to go. My apologies.
And we won't have a quorum, so I guess we'll have to end. I'd like to see, make sure all avenues as far as lease language too are there to support you in dealing with this problem too. Rather than just sticking us with another $50 a month or something. Okay, well, we'll have to talk about the seaplane condition assessment at some other time.
or you could just chat. I was just
Yeah.
gonna bring it up. It's just a discussion and you can continue or
Yep.
not, but the city manager is interested in, having assessment done of that and who knows where that will go. But, it's a 1993 vintage float system that is.
Right. We got adjourned, meeting adjourned, lack of quorum. So thanks, guys.
Yeah, thank you.
I'd like to just add as a PS, I'm anxious and available if you ever want to put a committee together to address some of these issues. Since I'm dealing with so many customers all the time, I very, very much am willing to volunteer to
Yeah.
put time into that.
Yeah, I appreciate you're
Yeah.
dealing with a lot of this. I think the committee could just be the harbor board.
Yeah.
Just, it's not a good time of year, but it's a good time to get it on the
Yeah, get it on your
on the
radar.
radar.
It would, you know, it would definitely take months out, you know, to start. Been monitoring something like that.
Sure.
You adjourned?
We have to.
I gotta plug sewer.
Oh.
Not that I wanna go back.
One of our members abandoned ship.
Yeah, I bet you'll have great luck getting someone to show up and help you with that.
And, you know, there's really no such thing as derelict vessels, it's derelict owners. You know.
Yeah.
I have some vessels that go back to the almost Titanic days,
Yeah,
but they're meticulously maintained and, you know, I trust those people.
yeah. But I think, I suspect Glo sees them coming long before she's able to do much about it. And it's not necessarily how it looks, but it's what is, who's valuing it.
Right, and just now that I'm dealing with 3 boats that are like.
Bet you every harbor in this country has this problem.
Yeah, well,
Or the shrimp.
you used to be able to just get rid of them.
Right.
Now you can't. Saved my butt.
Jim is a prime example of that. It's cheap storage. Harold Medallion, how many years did it was just because he. cheap storage,
Yeah.
And it wasn't a big deal. If we
It
were.
didn't have.
Build another. harbor. And so why should we build another harbor to subsidize derelicts? You know, cheap storage. That's what
I
I'm,
thought about this.
I-
Come around the turn.
I
turn
didn't.
on the road.
Huh?
Across from- It's perfect.
Have it in the parking lot. I'll either put it in the storage and charge them.
Parking's parking. So bring-
Well, and
But it's
we
on
have,
wheels.
That never happens. That never.
Thanks, Bob. See you, Jake.